She used to wrap me up in Mrs. Sterling's eiderdown. Tell me it would bring me good thoughts. Very sweet. I never got the nasty, there was no, well, not particularly, I never got the rough edge of her tongue, except once. When I said to her, darling, why don't we have bars in this theatre? She looked as if I'd shot her. And she said, dear boy, if it hadn't been for drunken men beating their wives, we'd never have got this place.
Great Acting, broadcast on BBC television, 26th of February, 1966.
Can I ask you something about All Saints Choir School a long time ago? Acting seems to have been a very important part of the curriculum there.
Yes, it was. We had an extremely lively, really highly artistic priest on the staff. Because you must remember that church, All Saints Margaret Street, is a high Anglican church. As we used to call it in those days, it was Anglo-Catholic. And the priesthood was likely, in those days, I went there about 1916, I suppose, to be rather indulge in the flamboyant. These lads, these priests, used to would love to think that they hobnobbed with Sybil Thorndike, and of course be overjoyed absolutely to have ever met Forbes Robertson in their lives.
Actors seem to have come to see a great many of the performances. I think when you were 10 years old, Ellen Terry said, the boy who plays the part of Brutus is already a great actor. Can you remember playing Brutus?
Oh, yes, I do. I do indeed. My father had a story about Forbes Robertson. I never believed it, but my father used to tell it, so I'll tell it for what it's worth. I don't know what it's worth in truth, but he said that he met Forbes Robertson on that occasion. And as he put it, Forbes Robertson had tears in his eyes when my father said, my little boy isn't bad, is he, or something. And he said that Forbes Robertson said, my dear man, he is Brutus, he said. Well, I don't see how I can have been at 10, but still.
Your father was a high Anglican clergyman.
He was a high Anglican clergyman.
Did he have a great deal of influence on your life?
Oh, yes. Life? Oh, yes, very much, very much. You see, both my brother and I started, at least with a great sense of ritual.
And it was these elaborate rituals that gave you the idea, perhaps, of acting?
Yes. Oh, yes, and my father's great prowess in the pulpit.
Did your father approve of you going on the stage?
Well, as a matter of fact, although my relationship with him had been extremely distant all my youth, I was terrified of him. He was a very frightening father figure, Victorian father figure. I absolutely worshipped and adored my mother, who died when I was 13 years old, and I often think and say that perhaps I've never got over it. Anyway, my father had to take over, not knowing me very much. I think to him I was rather an unnecessary child. I don't blame him at all, because I was probably very fat and absolutely brainless. But finally, when my brother went to India as an Indian rubber planter, not as an Indian rubber planter, but as an English rubber planter in India, I was filled with the glamour of what my brother was doing, and when we'd seen him off on his boat in Tilbury, we got back home to Letchworth, where my father was rector. I said, well, when can I follow Dickie out to India, Father, please? And about 1 or 2 years. I don't want to go to the university. And my father said, you're talking nonsense. You're going to be an actor.
And this was a complete surprise to you?
Yes, it was. I was amazed that that he'd thought things out for me at all, and B, that he'd thought things out that far. And that he'd had I secretly knew that he was right, that I ought to be an actor.
And so, after this direct exhortation from your father, you went off to the Central School, and there you met an extraordinary woman called Elsie Fogarty. Yes. What kind of a woman was she?
Very powerful woman. Very powerful. I remember she said two things, one which was quite...